There's this moment right before disaster makes itself comfortable in your nervous system. You know that moment right before your ego's PR team is trying to run the math on which is a worse look between fight or flight? That moment. So there I am. I'm sitting in the car and I'm having this like cinematic moment of just ocean and mountains. And I'm like, I'm Reese Witherspoon in Wild on this like self search pilgrimage. And this is where the PR spin of denial mind fucks you because everything in this moment is perfect. But why am I smelling the smell of zoo animals in my car? So my eyes follow my nose and mystery solved because I see fur attached to a big ass baboon who is sitting there with all four legs on the open driver's side window. The dude is literally just chilling there, looking at me like, bitch, move, you're in my car. And I'm like, what the hell am I seeing right now? Like, am I hallucinating? And then we both realized the same thing. He's here to score, and the human is about to freak out. And it is a now or never situation for both of us. And that is it. He leaps over the back seat and he grabs what he came for, which is literally 2 loaves of bread and half a jar of peanut butter. Now, look, I haven't even had time to scream, and this mountain thug has single-handedly pulled off a food heist like he's literally some international jewelry thief. Now I scream, and everything in my hands goes flying like I am Oprah handing out free stuff. And I'm running down the hill like somebody owes me money. Meanwhile, my mom is sitting and meditating under a tree, totally unaware of the horror show that's unfolding behind her. And I'm like, I'm shitting bricks over the fact that my face could have just been clawed off by a primate with a pink ass. So finally, my mom's running up the hill on her little boomer knees, ready to fist fight the baboon who is getting away with the last of our food stash. So clearly, we were screwed. This is not Wild, and I am not Reese Witherspoon.
Everybody has a dirty little secret. Mine had 4 wheels, no bathroom, and the nerve to call itself temporary. I'm Mika, and this is Accidentally Homeless, where survival has jokes, rock bottom has wheels, and the scenic route goes straight through hell.
How do you become homeless without admitting that you're homeless? You call it temporary and keep it moving. This is the episode where the car stops being the thing that gets us to places and becomes the place. So there we were, a millennial and a boomer, 1 week into living with our whole lives packed into a car parked in a rest stop, out of fuel, out of money, and out of food. You would think that any notion denying that we were clearly living in a dumpster fire would have left the chat by this point. Nope, not us. We were doubling down on downplaying the train wreck that we had just endured. It was a minor speed bump in a very temporary situation. This is not our life. We're not the kind of people that this kind of stuff happens to, obviously. At the same time, we're looking around for someone to be like, oh my God, you were grievously wronged. We'll help you catch that bastard. And all we get from the fishermen over by the trees is these damn baboons, you gotta watch out for them. And they go back to their fishing like nothing happened. What we can't say is, hello, call the marshals, a life and death crime has just been committed, and that baboon is in a mountain retreat stuffing his face with the last of our food. And if we don't get it back, we will die from starvation. We don't say that because that would be insane. Theatrics aside, it was painfully simple. We had needs. We needed safety, we needed money, and we needed food. And Now we needed a bathroom that still believed in plumbing because the cleaner went MIA and the public toilets were 48 hours into choosing violence. So 4 months earlier, my mom was a 58-year-old school teacher in the unfortunate position of being 58 in an ageist workplace society. So naturally, she was rudely excused from her job forever. And I was a 25-year-old screenwriter waiting on my big break, which is really just a fancy way of saying I had no income. So between my mom losing her only income and me having none to begin with, I would say that we were screwed. Now, as the person in charge of turning panic into plans, I did what I do best, and I produced a seriously questionable plan that just might work. What was the plan? My mom would reach out to her 34-year on-again, off-again estranged mother, a woman we appropriately referred to as too mean to die, who happened to have an empty beach cottage. So we would look after the place, and in exchange, we would get free rent. What could possibly go wrong? So we struck a deal. 4 months of breathing room, just enough time for us to get our lives back together. Or so we thought. Because here's the thing, right? When you're earmarked for a shit show, it doesn't matter how far you run. Eventually, the shit show is going to find you. So we trusted that a higher power had our backs because that's how it always was. At minute 99, something would always show up. But it didn't. The savings dried up. The credit cards maxed out. New opportunities never came. And we basically just sat there and watched 4 months run out. So it was time to leave. And we had less than what we rocked up with. We had no plan. We had no money. But we had a car. So we packed our stuff and set off on a road trip to the other side of South Africa, armed with the clothes on our backs and a vision of a tiny seaside town called Pringle Bay. Looking back, that sounds insane. But can you really afford to not be delusional when reality has already checkmated you? We didn't decide to live in our car. We ran out of places to go, and the car was what was still there. Horror doesn't arm you with logic. It strips you down to instinct. This is where we realized we're basically driving to a mystery location with no real idea why or what would be waiting for us when and if we even got there. Maybe none of this was even a good idea. So we're thinking let's turn back. Turn back? There's nowhere to turn back to. We don't have a home. We don't belong anywhere. We're basically doing this scared shitless with a bank account that's running dry faster than we're driving. I'm watching the fuel gauge every 10 seconds. Like if I stared hard enough, I could shame it into staying put, which is stupid because fuel is literally designed to run out. So we had a location and we had a feeling. We did not have a plan. And we weren't choosing adventure. We were choosing forward because backward no longer existed. We were popping every horrible little cherry homelessness had to offer. First time we felt what it feels like to not have a home. First time we felt exposed and unsafe. And the first time we really had to trust God to keep our wheels turning on a road that was basically being built underneath us in real time. I mean, we were Bon Jovi and living on a prayer. But what living on a prayer feels like is like you're sick to your stomach and there's no release. Now, when you're on a trip where you really can't afford for anything to go wrong, something always goes wrong. So first we got a flat tire and we pull into a small town that seemed to have a church on literally every street corner. So all we had to do was find a garage. Simple, right? Except it's a public holiday on a Monday. The place is a ghost town. Now, the good news is that we found a garage with people in it. The bad news is that it's giving sketchy chop shop that looks like a gang shootout could break out at any minute. Now, it turns out that these scary looking dudes were actually some of the most salt of the earth people who changed our tire for free. And now we could make it to the next town where there was a proper tire shop. So off we went, crawling along in our tiny, overloaded Kia, held up by 3 tires and a skinny spare, driving on nothing but prayer and borrowed lives. So finally, we made it to the tire shop in the next town. Yay! It's closed. So we drive on, hoping that we'll somehow make it to the next big small town a couple 100 kilometers away. But we know that there's no way that that's happening. We pull over on a side street to regroup and figure out our next move. Everyone on the street is behind a fence in a house with walls, as they should be. And we're alone in the streets. And just when we thought we ran out of faith, a car pulled up next to us. And all I saw on the door was a yellow sign with big black letters on it that said Dunlop. And so the driver gets out and he asked us if we needed help. And oh my God, we did. And he worked at a tire shop in another town. He hooked us up with a better spare and off we went into the night. That man was an angel and we had just lived a miracle. So it's late when we make it to the next town. We're tired, we're dirty, and we're hungry. And it's a crappy little town that looked like it survived entirely on dust and bad decisions. No trusty fast food chains. But there's a place that serves pizza and it had a crowd. Now, I should have known that pizza in a town like this did not mean pizza in the sense that I had come to know it. What I received could only be described as damp, sloppy dough with rubbery Play-Doh cheese and a barbecue chutney sauce where the marinara sauce is supposed to live. Now, I say this with my whole heart, and bless whoever made it, but that was inedible. Total waste of money we did not have to waste. I walked across the street and I gave my pizza to a homeless man. And he smiled at me with a mouthful of gums and he shook my hands in his sandpapery hands. I made his night. And I was going to bed hungry. That was the first time that we ever slept in our car in a parking lot. And it was the first time that we went to bed hungry. And it was also the first time that I really saw a homeless person, because was I now a homeless person? No, couldn't be. Because homeless people looked like the dude I gave my pizza to. Not like me. My mom and I took turns. I would keep watch while my mom slept. And outside, the homeless man was living his best life and acting wild. Everyone just coming and going while we stayed and never left. We made it to morning. Yay! So finally, we could drive across the street, buy a new tire, and get the hell out of this shithole. But as always, reality was about to remind us who was actually in charge. Now, we figured we could swing the cost of one new tire. Reality said, you'll take 2. So there goes our food money for the rest of forever. Great. 2 new tires on, blow the town, and we are pedal to the metal on the highway. But something's off because the steering wheel is shaking and the car keeps pulling to the right like it is trying to introduce us to the afterlife. Here we go again. Back to the shitty little town. Back to the shitty little tire shop. So apparently, the other tires were just as useless. So, a full new set later, and the rest of our survival money sacrificed to the tire gods, we were back on the road. Safer, poorer, and on the way to a mystery destination that we still could not afford to reach. This was Displacement's welcome mat. Yeehaw! We're in it now. And there is no visible bottom. It felt like we had been driving for weeks. It had been hours, and we still had 500 kilometers to go, half a tank of fuel, and nothing left in the bank. So we pulled into a big Shell rest stop to freshen up and decide whether we were calling it quits and becoming Shell's newest tenants, or hustle and pray hard enough for the universe to cough up fuel money. The messed up part was that here, we were just like everyone else, from somewhere on our way to someplace else. But we didn't really have anywhere to go. We had no life to get back to. This was our life. And that is some deeply unsettling shit to sit with. The gut punch came when I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror, and I realized I am looking at a person with no home. That is me now. But I've got a money problem that is not going to solve itself. Now, here's the thing about solving a money problem when you're broke. If you can't pay in cash, you pay in pride. And so it comes down to 3 words. And I hate these words. Ask for money. I would rather eat a bowl of live snakes than ask anyone for money. For context, I faced off with a cobra at 9, outran it, and left it with nothing but dust, my backpack, and a half-eaten sandwich to remember me by. So my mom figures she'll ask her ex-husband of 25 years ago. She let him keep the portion of the divorce, and she's never asked him for shit. We bit the bullet, and we sent him a text. And then we waited. Then came the will he, won't he nerves. How long do we have to wait? What if he says no? What if he reads the text and says nothing? And then he answered, how much do you need? And send me banking details. What do we do once this money runs out? No idea. But it didn't matter, because today we're still in the game, even if the board's on fire. And on we went. And that was kind of our survival kit. Little miracles, delusion, and naivety. So finally, we made it to Pringle Bay. Now, Pringle Bay is like Cape Town's chilled out, more beautiful cousin who moved to the mountains, stopped answering texts, and now only wears insanely expensive linen and cashmere and pretends she doesn't know she's gorgeous. So for a second, it felt like life actually got bored of trying to kill us and gave us something pretty to bask in. Now we're walking on the beach where the sand was like snow white and soft as velvet. You know, this is the kind of sand that lets you know immediately, oh, this place has money. And then we saw the public bathrooms. Not haunted, not fighting for their lives. And that's when we knew, yeah, we'd pulled up on some rich people shit. It's like life rolled out the red carpet and said, welcome to homeless elite. You have arrived. But because homelessness has a diabolical sense of humor, Paradise started charging rent. Yeah, the beach was still gorgeous. The parking lot was still quiet. But night came and it brought a friend. Reality check. So first we hid the car behind some bushes because this didn't seem like the kind of place where 2 women sleeping in a packed car would be met with mind your business energy. And then came bathroom time. Because when you live in a car, bathroom time is never a by the by, except the bathrooms were locked. And there's my mom, almost 60 years old, with a botched hysterectomy and bladder impulse control issues, needing to pee. Not soon. Not when the municipality decided access to toilets was no longer a luxury experience. Right? The fuck now. So dignity traded itself for popping a squat in the dark. Peace turned into taking turns staying awake, listening for patrols, waiting to be discovered. We weren't homeless. We were just 2 normal people living at the beach with our entire lives in the car. Now, Pringle Bay gave us beauty, but it also reminded us that it wasn't practical to live there, so we left. And we drove until we found a roadside picnic spot. Now, this place was dope. It had its own beach, bathrooms, open space, and even picnic tables. Clearly the answer that we were looking for. And for 2 uneventful weeks, it really was. Right up until the toilets clogged. And then, because apparently our lives just needed wildlife-based plot development, we survived a baboon burglary. So we packed up and kept it moving. You know, I think what we needed was less primate and more human. And then we stumbled on Gordon's Bay. Now, Gordon's Bay is like a seaside village that accidentally inherited boat money. It had a wide open beach parking lot. It had tourists, street vendors, coffee shops, people, and noise. And I couldn't think of a more perfect place for us to blend and basically live homeless right in the open without anybody knowing. What we didn't realize is that we'd accidentally parked ourselves in the middle of an underground homeless community living in plain sight. Now, we moved around like normal people because, we looked normal, which is the funniest scam that homelessness ever let us pull. The locals saw two women by the beach, and the people sleeping rough saw two women without a home. They knew about us, and we knew about them. Everyone else just kind of kept ordering fish and chips with a side of ocean view. And that's when the truth wormed itself in. Because no, this wasn't a fluke anymore. It wasn't a weird chapter. This was a way of life. The road trip was over, and the living in the car part was just beginning. There's this moment in Friends where Rachel's spiraling about how the nights are hard, and then the days are hard, and then the nights come back again. And honestly, when you live in a car, yeah, the days are rough. But the nights are like barebacking a cactus. Night meant doing all the normal before bed things, except now we were brushing our teeth and spitting into a water bottle because opening the door to spit outside was a literal security risk. It meant sleeping with two eyes open, one hand on the ignition key and the other on the gear shift. Feet by the pedals at all times, because this was the land of Wild West anything can happen anytime shit show, and we've got to be able to make a fast exit. We weren't sleeping. We were taking turns being afraid, and every option was a catch-22. Hide the car in a dark corner and feel vulnerable. Move the car under a streetlight and feel exposed. Stay awake and crumble from paranoia. Fall asleep and risk not seeing something coming. Sleep upright in the car seat, wake up with swollen ankles. So eventually, we watched the sun come up, and guess what? We made it. We survived the night. But daylight literally changes nothing. All it does is extends our survival circus into better light. So what we thought was a badge of honor was actually just the welcome mat to a hell loop. And this is where we realized that denial was never our protector. Denial is a vindictive bitch that tucks you in at night and robs you blind in the morning. So what became crystal clear was, oh fuck, this is our life now. And the fantasy of temporary is deceased. We end where we began, in our car that is now our home. Except now, we're parked in Gordon's Bay after a terrifying night. And the car that was just our place to crash is now our panic room, our kitchen, our emotional support prison, and our portable shame capsule. And we come to the very obvious conclusion that we have to get the fuck out of here, which is really a conclusion that we came to multiple times a day. But what we knew now was that we have to get out of here is not a rare emergency. It's breakfast. This is where things really took a turn for us, because up until this point, we were kind of just reacting. We were in triage mode, trying to put band-aids over bullet holes. But the problem with this particular set of life circumstances is that the bullets kind of never stop flying. And there aren't enough band-aids in the world to cover the kind of craters that we had. And let's be honest, you can't fix a bullet hole with a band-aid. So what started as an accident now had to become intentional, structured, and strategic. So we had to stop being shell-shocked and start being smart. Just not defeated, not delusional, just radically honest about what was happening and ruthless about what came next. We didn't know how long this was going to last, and we just knew that we had to make it work. And we had to stop treating it like this nightmare that we were going to wake up from and start treating it like a reality we had to survive. Because the truth was, no one was coming to save us. And if we were going to have any shot at getting out of this mess, we were going to have to become our own white knights and save ourselves. We weren't dead and we weren't done. Surprisingly, we weren't screwed, but we sure as shit would be if we kept living like tomorrow owed us a course correction and an apology tour. Because if we were going to survive living in this car for who the hell knows how long, we were going to have to learn how to live in it. So it was time to trade panic for strategy. What we needed was a get the fuck out plan and an if everything goes to shit plan. And that's when we realized, oh shit, we need a plan.